So we're here now. But we started here. In program development, the difference between the quality of these two eras of P-pop can be likened to the alpha version, the very first draft versus the gold release version, the one released and sold to the public. But do you ever wonder, what happened in the in-between? How did we jump from this to this? To be clear, I'm not talking about talent, because that's always been the one consistent thing. But I'm talking about song and production quality, as well as the self-identity. Some people might think P-pop just happened overnight. But if you look at the source code of the modern Filipino Idol, you'll find a massive system update that happened around 2014 to 2020. There was a beta version after the alpha and before the gold release of P-pop. It was JaDine.
Leave it all behind me, I need to breathe. Oh, yeah. I look at you and I see you might be the key.
Now, this might sound weird. James Reid and Nadine Lustre were a love team. Though, yes, Nadine Lustre was part of Pop Girls, but they were actually the version of P-pop released to an audience to patch the bugs and stress test the features before the P-pop industry went global. Every software needs a language. In the early 2010s, OPM had a language bug. High-quality songs were either strictly English or strictly Tagalog. Anything in between was often dismissed as badui or novelty. Enter the architects, Thyro and Yumi. Through JaDine, they popularized a slick, sophisticated Taglish. Songs like No Erase and Bahala Na weren't just killing tracks. They were the first time conversational Filipino felt cool and pop enough for the radio. They removed the cringe factor from localized R&B, creating the linguistic foundation that groups like Alamat and Beanie use today. And it didn't happen just because of Thyro and Yumi. The formula had to be Thyro, Yumi, James, and Nadine. The songs they gave them were songs adjusted for them. James didn't speak straight Tagalog, and Nadine often translates for him, so the songs being Taglish felt natural on them. That's partly what helped remove the cringe. Most of the Taglish Thyro and Yumi songs went to them because of this. Their songs that went to Sarah Geronimo or Sam Concepcion were still in the old format of being either fully in English or fully in Tagalog. This is the foundation Thyro also used for Alamat's multilingual songs. That's right, if you check the song credits, Thyro is one of Alamat's usual composer and producer. Not only that, at a time when OPM music videos struggling to hit 5 million views was the norm, JaDine's Holy Trinity, No Erase, Bahala Na, and Hanap Hanap shattered the ceiling. They were pulling around 30 million, 41.6 million, and eventually a staggering 88 million views on a single track. These weren't just movie promo numbers, they were idol-level metrics. It was the first time the industry saw numbers like this that was more aligned with K-pop MV views. Too bad the original posts of these songs have now been removed or archived by Viva due to legal or copyright reasons. In 2017, the beta test hit its first major hurdle, the westernization bug. When James Reid released Palm Dreams, it was a massive risk. He leaned heavily into electronic, EDM, and house genres that were reserved for clubs, not the OPM charts. The user feedback at the time was harsh. People said it was too Western or not Filipino enough. But look at P-pop today. When you hear the house pop brilliance of Pantrapico or the DM foundations of SB19's Cuento, you're hearing the descendants of those 2017 experiments. James wasn't losing his roots. He was expanding the definition of what OPM was allowed to sound like. While James was updating the audio, Nadine was rewriting the visual interface. Before aesthetic was a household term, Nadine was known for her feet gold. She moved the industry away from raw celebrity snaps to curated branding. People would spend hours trying to copy her Lightroom presets or her cool girl indie vibe. This matters because modern P-pop is 50% music and 50% visual storytelling. Nadine proved that an artist's vibe and color palette are just as important as the vocal track. She was the first idol to successfully foray into creative direction, setting the standard for the visual albums we see today. Usually, love teams go to provincial festivals just to wave from a float. But JaDine always performed. They toured the Philippines, invited by local governments and businesses to perform in their festivals and company events. It was the Philippine version of a K-pop university tour. And because they documented everything in vlogs and documentary, fans didn't just see stars, they saw the grind. This shifted the culture from "I like this couple" to "I am part of their journey," which is the core of idol fandom culture today. Idol documentary is also something that is expected today from groups. JaDine was essentially an idol group in disguise. They established the idol playbook. Fandom colors: red for James, blue for Nadine, purple for the unit. Lightsticks: Purple Ocean, JaDine Day, fan meet and greets. Fan services: global mobilization. They taught fans how to vote. In 2017, they stress-tested the Filipino fandom's voting power. James won Best Southeast Asian Act at the MTV VMAs, and Nadine secured the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award. They even won an SBS Pop Asia against BTS back in 2016. They proved that Pinoy fans could dominate global servers. The same power that now puts P-pop at the top of international polls.
I'm James Reid, and I'm the founder and chairman of Careless and Island City.
Then came the final update: Careless Music. James wasn't just a singer, he was a visionary. By establishing Careless, he proved that a Filipino artist didn't need to stay within the big network system to be successful. This was the ultimate decentralization patch. You can see the direct influence of this independent code in SB19. When they broke away to form Onesie Entertainment, they weren't just starting a company. They were following the blueprint of artist-led autonomy that James pioneered. In fact, the respect is mutual. When James guest appeared on SB19's Time First podcast, they didn't just talk as celebrities, they talked as fellow CEOs and founders. They discussed the heavy cost of creative freedom and the glitches of the industry. James showed that the artist could also be the architect, and SB19 took that source code and scaled it into a global powerhouse. With Careless, James built a global bridge, partnering with Transparent Arts and collaborating with K-pop stars like B.I., JB, Oven, CK, Henry Lau, Bam Bam and The Rose, and other international stars like Destiny Rogers, Ozzy, and Manila Gray. Back then, these interactions were massive headline news. But now it's not even surprising to see our pop idols doing dance challenges with international pop idols anymore. But the ultimate proof of this global update: the New York City Times Square billboards. In 2021, Nadine became the first Filipino Artist of the Month for Spotify's EQUAL campaign to hit the big screen in NYC. Just weeks later, James followed with his own billboard for Amazon Music. While we see P-pop groups on international billboards regularly in 2026, back then, this was a massive system first. They were the first Filipino musical artists to occupy that specific, iconic real estate, proving that Pinoy pop was finally compatible with the world's biggest stage. But the global handshake didn't stop at billboards. In 2021, James Reid became the first Philippine-based artist to be featured on the Recording Academy's Press Play series. Seeing a Pinoy artist on the official Recording Academy platform wasn't just a win for Careless. It was validation that Filipino talent is world-class. This is something James always believed in. In his interviews back then, he always emphasized on how he believes that Filipinos are talented and are allowed to sound global, too.
It's really a platform that's for artists, by artists. So we just want to help push the culture in the Philippines.
And this has now come true today. In late 2020, even during a pandemic, James was performing at the Overpass Festival alongside Baekhyun and Yuna. It was a signal. The beta version of P-pop was officially compatible with the global pop market.
Girl, you got that soul love, soul love. Oh, you give me soul love, soul love. Oh, you got that soul love, soul love.
But every beta test has an external system crash. For JaDine, it was 2020. Just as they were poised for a massive US expansion, the world shut down. The Coachella-adjacent networking, the tour, the global push, everything hit a server error. But even during the crash, Nadine dropped Wildest Dreams, a concept-driven visual album with a cinematic narrative. This was probably one of the very first music videos to prove that Filipinos can also achieve global quality music video. The visual album is also a masterpiece of showcasing Filipino culture, something that is prevalent in the current P-pop groups. They incorporated the concept of albularia and ajamat, and referenced Filipino mythology like Amen Sinai and Maria Makiling. They used costumes that gives nod to our history and fashion, and were specifically designed by our Filipino designers. The visual UI for what a Filipino idol could look like when they embraced their roots without the cringe factor was established with this visual album.
Ngunit isang araw, ang mga tagapaanan ng bundok ay nasapian ng kasakiman.
Yapa, malaya at puno ng pagmamahal ang lahat. Naglaho ng dahil sa makamundong kasakiman.
Now, you might be thinking, I was around in 2016, and I don't remember them moving like an idol unit. And that's exactly the point. Like any true beta test, JaDine was operating on two levels. To the casual public, they were just another massive love team with hit movies and catchy songs. But for the fans who watched the documentaries, went to the tour, followed the Careless independent shift, and tracked the global festival rumors, they were seeing a completely different program running. The reason JaDine is the missing link is because they were testing these idol features in a semi-closed environment. Not everyone saw the code they were writing, but we are all living in the P-pop system that code eventually built. So, was JaDine a P-pop group? Technically, no. They were a love team, but looking back, it's clear they provided the blueprint on how P-pop works now. They patched the bugs, they stress-tested the sounds. They built the infrastructure of lightsticks, vlogs, and global voting when the rest of the industry was still playing it safe. Today, we don't call it being revolutionary, we just call it P-pop. The glitches of the mid-2010s became the standard features of 2026. Modern P-pop is the shiny, finalized gold release, but it's all running on the source code that the JaDine Revolution first wrote. And the connection between JaDine and modern P-pop isn't just theoretical, it's documented. If JaDine was the beta, they were still running when the gold release began to launch. Back in 2020, at the Mix Awards, we saw the circle close. JaDine, the established icons, crossed paths with a rookie group that was about to change everything, SB19. The crossover was everywhere if you knew where to look. Many of the first 8 were actually former JaDine fans. Even the aesthetics overlapped. SB19's Ken was once styled by Nadine's own stylist. And as mentioned, we've seen James appearing on SB19's podcast, showing a mutual respect between the pioneer and the powerhouses. And you can't forget that during SB19's earlier days, they often performed a cover of James Reid's Wag Ka Nang Humirit.
No, no, gusto mo na ngayon ay tayo na. Huwag na magpumili. No, no, ikot ka pa ba? Pagkakahira ang katulad mo, di na pagkakawalan.
But the lineage goes even deeper into the industry hardware. JaDine was managed by the two giants now leading the P-pop movement, Vivo, the home of Alamat, Gat and Rhea, and ABS-CBN, the home of Beanie, BGY, and Rive. Meanwhile, labels like Cornerstone had Inigo Pascual be a sort of answer to James Reid back in the day. They were the pop heartthrobs of their generation with Sam Conception. And now they're managing groups like G22 and Vision. JaDine didn't just pave the road, they were the mentors, the bosses, and the style icons for the very people who are now taking P-pop to the world. The beta version was actually pretty legendary.